You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Oh, no, you're going to cut. Oh, damn it.
How do I spell that for the title?
R-A-W-W-R.
I think you're more like a M-E-O-W.
Do you want to record this, or should I just hang up the phone?
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
and Brazilian Ty
Hunters are people, too.
talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I'm Travis Currah. He is Brazilian Ty. Ty, how was your mini holiday, man? I haven't talked to you for a while.
Nothing mini about my holiday. I ate a bunch of raw smokies. I chugged a bottle of Fireball with no shirt on. Watched probably 2 full seasons of Suits just to catch up, and did nothing around the house.
I would expect nothing less.
Wait, the keg was empty by Saturday afternoon, and all I had left was whiskey, so you can imagine how the rest of my weekend went.
Man, Sunday morning I woke up and I watched 4 football games. I have no idea how much I retained, but let's try and go through this.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were!
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
and pick'em.cfl.ca.
It all started with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beating the Calgary Stampeders 26-24. But man, this game was a hard-hitting battle, and you saw the emotion coming out of Andrew Harris at the end of the game with the big rush that basically clinched it. When these two teams meet again, it's not going to be pretty. Actually, emotions were flying high with, Cordero Law really getting into it a little bit there. Both teams, they're not fans of each other.
No, and especially when these two teams are probably going to be battling for that number 1 spot.
Yeah.
Especially once Bo Levi comes back, it's going to be even more pronounced. Winnipeg gets the win, but they tried their best to lose this game late.
Oh, they totally did. And their offense was not doing much. Let's just say that.
That's about par for the course. I mean, when you almost outrush your passing offense, that usually doesn't bode too well.
It was the Janarian Grant show, and it has been the return show the entire season. It has been absolutely incredible. I don't know how or why this is happening, but I'm a fan of it.
Marshall Ferguson and Darren Moore, or not Darren, who's Ferguson's color guy? Morreale?
Oh, yeah, on the radio. I think so, yep.
Yeah. They brought up no padded practices. But then the media asks Mike O'Shea about it, about how are the returns like making a comeback, and he's like, I'm a special teams guy and I don't even know.
And I don't even know. Well, there's a couple special teams guys in the West. Saskatchewan, Craig Dickinson, they gave up another return. And yeah, O'Shea, it's not like Calgary wasn't having and hasn't been having success on the returns as well. The Bombers have given up a few of those themselves. So it is just going crazy right now. And if it's because of the padded practices, it's not like guys they're not tackling, or we saw Devontae Dedmon break about 8 tackles on a return.
It's not that they're not tackling; it's that they're not tackling well.
Right. I think it makes it exciting, though.
100%. Did you see the stat that TSN put up? I believe it was in the Saskatchewan-Hamilton game that they're on pace for 43 return touchdowns or 42 return touchdowns this year. And the record's 24.
But it's guys, I don't know if it's the crop of returners, but they're just not staying in their proper lanes. It's some of these guys are like untouched.
Well, and we saw it last night. Or on Saturday night with Frankie Williams. Everybody's so worried about him getting up the middle, they left the sideline wide open.
Exactly.
Granted, we'll get into it. There was probably a missed call on that return, but I mean, you have to fill lanes, and they're just not filling lanes correctly a lot of the time. And when you don't do that, it makes your tackling look even worse because you're out of position.
Exactly. So positioning, it looks like a lot to me, but I think it's fun. When Janarian Grant has 222 yards in punt returns and another 84 on kick returns, the numbers are just insane. 2 punt return touchdowns. So if they don't have special teams, there is not a chance that they win this game at all.
On its face,
but special teams is a part of the game.
What they would have done with those drives? Who knows what they would have done with those drives? But the way their drives went, I don't think much was going to happen.
But special teams is a part of the game, and now it just seems like it's almost exactly 33.333% along with offense and defense. It's awesome
for a lot of teams. It's It's more than that because they don't have a rushing game.
Right.
So, I mean, your rushing is 5% because you only hand the ball off 6 times. There was a little bit of that this week, but I mean, the emphasis has really been on special teams this year, like with all the returns and everything. We always say it's a 3-facet game. There's 3 phases to it. You got to win 2 of them to have a shot to win, and teams winning those special teams battles are putting themselves in a really good position.
You talk about a team that doesn't have a rushing game, and right now the Calgary Stampeders are there, and we've been so used to that team for the past, I'd say, decade and a half of being able to run the ball against their opponent's throat. Their leading rusher was Terry Williams with 21 yards. That was on 3 carries. You could argue he probably should have gotten a bit more carries, but I think everything kind of changed for the Calgary Stampeders once Romar Morris got hurt again. Dave Dickinson said it was Achilles again, and you just got to feel for the guy that comes back 8 months after tearing an Achilles last year, and he's out again. He's only 26 years old, but that sucks. He fought all the way back to get to this point, and it happens again.
And it's just so hard to come back from. And it's just such a devastating injury to begin with. We saw it in the NBA Finals, Kevin Durant coming back, and you could literally see it.
Yeah.
You could see it ripple up his calf. It just makes you shudder, and the pain, it's just got to be something else. And, it sucks. Like you said, he's only 26 years old. Last year he showed that he could be a starting running back. He put up some numbers, but, if he's not going to be able to stay healthy, he's not going to be able to do much. I mean, Calgary rushed the ball 12 times. So even after Romar Morris got hurt, they still didn't run the ball. And it makes it really hard.
Bo Levi Mitchell is eligible to come back next week against the Alouettes, or I guess you could call it this week now. I don't know if he'll play. I think that they should save him until after the bye, but I think Bo, if he gets to call his shot, he'll be able to play against the Alouettes here. And I think that the Stampeders have to be happy how things have gone with Nick Arbuckle leading the charge.
You cannot be upset at 5-3.
No.
And in a tie for first place.
No.
I mean, best case scenario. Worst case Ontario, they could have went 0 or win 1 game in this stretch, which wouldn't have been overly surprising. With Nick Arbuckle not having a lot of experience, but with the comeback win over BC, it really opened people's eyes. Like, maybe this guy is legit, small sample size, and he's been playing pretty decent football and keeping Calgary in it. And like I said, to be tied with Bo Levi Mitchell available to come back off the 6th game, it's astounding what they've been able to do with him out of the lineup.
Let me see here. He was the top scoring quarterback in fantasy this week, wasn't he?
He was, yes. Which I don't think anybody really saw coming against Winnipeg.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's pretty good.
Now, who had Janarian Grant on their roster?
Whoever says they did is a
Was
liar.
he available is the question.
I'm sure the people over at TSN CFL Fantasy were right on top of
that. Matt Nichols, 7.4 or 7.5 fantasy points. This was the definition of when you look at it, though, 18 of 22, you're like, wow, that's awesome. But 177 yards, no touchdowns. Actually, the Stampeder defense was able to hold the Bombers out of the end zone for the entire game. So the Stampeder defense, I don't think enough can be said about what they are doing despite all of their losses in the offseason.
Okay, if Matt Nichols is a game manager, can we just let's quit using the narrative that he's using this to as bulletin board material. He averaged 8 yards an attempt, not even a completion, an attempt. He's not even throwing the ball downfield at this point.
It seems like he's a bit shell-shocked after throwing those 3 interceptions against the Ticats.
That could be part of it too. So then, of course, he reverts. It's a regression to the mean.
Yeah, I would like to see him flying high again and throwing bombs to, Lucky Whitehead, who has been limited himself.
You
too.
don't have to.
Yeah, they don't have to.
Throw a screen pass.
Yeah, they got Dembski, Harris, Whitehead. I mean, you might as well start throwing.
You could probably get Janarian Grant. You'd probably get the ball to Janarian Grant too at some point.
Yeah, they got so much balance on that team that the good teams do have to win the ugly ones though too, and what
this was definitely an ugly one.
I think the Bombers have not been able to do over the past little while, and this is the hump that they need to get over so they can finish first and get that first round bye.
Well, so Andrew Harris rushed for 100 yards on 19 carries. That's great. That's what you want. Matt Nichols only passed for 177. Not ideal. But when you look at the receivers, Lucky Whitehead, 33. Chris Matthews, 33. Andrew Harris out of the backfield, 44. Kenny the King Lawler, 46. I mean, your leading receiver is Andrew Harris with 8 catches.
Yeah.
Everybody else, 3, 4, 3, 3. He's finding, the system is set up for Matt Nichols to succeed. Let's be honest.
Right.
And he is. But like you said, the balance, and he got so many options, and he can throw the ball to basically anybody right now, and it seems that they're coming down with it. I mean, 4 incompletions is that's ridiculous. And who do you cover? Because if you're going to put your best guy on Dembski or Lucky Whitehead, for example, then you're leaving Chris Matthews in a favorable matchup, or Drew Wolodarski or Andrew Harris can slip out of the backfield. The offense when it's clicking, it's scary.
What did you think about that quarterback draw they tried with Matt Nichols? It kind of looked like that was a Strevler play.
Yeah, did Mike O'Shea not know who was in at quarterback?
I said, wait, what? Is that Strevler?
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not.
No, yeah. I was like, ooh, that's not a good look.
Yeah. But this week was full of close games again, just like the previous week was. The next one was, I guess, 3/4 of a game. Not even 3/4 of the game. How many fantasy teams lost out on probably 20, 25 points from that fourth quarter not being played?
I had Fajardo and Powell.
Oh, it hurts. The Saskatchewan Roughriders do win by beating the Montreal Alouettes 17-10 in a game, or 3/4 of a game, where no offensive points were scored. It was all returns or fumble returns or some sort of return going on here. I mean, Shakir Ryan joining the party, a guy that was cut in training camp, signs on with Montreal and scores himself a nice return touchdown in this one. The Riders they're struggling in that department, and I don't know if it's a special team scheme or if John Ryan is still kind of struggling, adjusting back to the Canadian game and the lanes there.
He's kicking the ball too far.
Well, yeah, and he gets a rouge every game.
Who would have? Yeah, a rouge to. Oh no, last week was a rouge to cover.
Yeah.
Like, bingo. But like you're already giving up 5 yards, and when he's kicking it 20 yards further than his cover team can get down there, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
And who would have thought punting the ball too far would be an issue?
It's not very often that you can say that, man. I wish I could punt the ball too far.
It's crazy. Another thing, I had to work on Friday.
Okay, yeah.
I got home, watched one play, and the players were sent off the field.
No, one play.
One play.
And then they won.
So I would like to thank Derek Taylor and Luke Mullender for keeping me abreast on the drive home from Turtleford. But, it was not an ideal. It worked out well because I'm like, oh, man, this game's going to be delayed and it's going to overlap with the other one. And then Rod Smith is like, they could call it. And I'm like, wait, what? And I looked up the rule, and it's 1 hour. And I'm like, oh, just turns into a really good doubleheader then, I guess.
Does 1 hour seem short to you?
A little bit. I get it. It's third quarter. I don't think it's long enough. I think an hour. But at the same time, what's the rule? So an hour. But with the Lightning, if the last lightning strike, let's say, is 5 minutes before that hour, how long do they have to wait past that last lightning strike for it to be safe to play again? Because I know at work for us it's 30 minutes.
Okay.
So if there's a lightning strike, you count to 30 seconds. If thunder comes, you go to the truck and you have to wait 30 minutes. Now I could be at 29 minutes and 59 seconds, and there could be another lightning strike. That clock resets back to 30 minutes.
Right.
So how long would they have to... Yeah, so delay the game for an hour. Lightning goes on for 59 minutes, no more lightning. How long do they have to wait before they can go back on the field? Because now you're adding even more time. So would the Lightning have had to quit in the first half hour?
It's just crazy that if they played 6 minutes left, they would have waited out or 6 minutes less, they would have waited out
They would have waited another hour.
Yeah.
Right? Is it 2 hours? Yeah. And 3 hours in the first half.
Yeah, so I get this was discussed in the CBA. Mm-hmm. It was negotiated that way.
And I don't know how long that storm lasted past that hour.
Right.
But I mean, as a Rider fan, I kind of chuckle. Easy win. As a fan of the league, it's just more ammo for people who think it's a joke. And then you go through Twitter and you got to deal with all of it, and it just sucks.
Was that the chatter on Twitter?
Yeah, like the whole only in the CFL, Bush League, yada, 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 right? And then, of course, you have some people saying that, the rule is dumb, and it is, but, I mean, both teams play by the same rules. It's not like it was because of the Riders, and people are saying, oh, yeah, of course they're going to call the game. It's the Riders, and blah, 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 and the league wants them to win. It's like, well, no, this is in the CBA. It's just, and then Bob, and then of course Bob Irving, because he's gold on Twitter and always has the best takes, right?
It's just funny because fans of a league that is basically terrified to have their championship game north of Miami. oh God, we had it in New York. Woohoo,
In New York, it did rain and it was miserable the whole game, basically. And Peyton Manning looked real bad.
And then in baseball, when they're delaying games because of, oh God, I would like to see some of those leagues play in what they play in the Canadian Football League, and then then come back later.
I've had a hockey game canceled because it was too cold because the Archie Miller Arena was colder inside than outside.
Oh, the Archie. At least you don't got the wind chill in there.
I think it might have been worse because like the little slits in between because it was just a barn, right?
Yeah.
It would like funnel the wind in, and it would just hit the back of your neck on the. Oh, it was miserable.
Is that thing still standing?
Yeah, there's glass in it now. We used to practice there until they kicked us out.
Oh, wow. The old Archie Miller and Lloydminster.
6 a.m. practices, and then Lloyd Minor Hockey after 2 weeks said, no, you guys tear the ice up too much in the mornings.
Oh.
It doesn't have time to recover. It's like, okay. Nobody's on it until 5 o'clock.
So, yeah, if you look at the stat sheet, it's officially the quickest game in CFL history with 1 hour and 57 minutes.
Was this like Mark Burley versus Roy Halladay, or what are we looking at here? You could go to the ballpark and you know you'd be out of there an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah. You know what? I thought that the Als were going to be able to rush it all over the Riders because of the depleted defensive line. Evans, Leonard, Johnson were hurt, but that it's apparent that the Riders have depth at the defensive line. There were guys making plays there. A lot of it seemed like this was the Derek Moncrief show when
oh my goodness,
he laid into Pipkin, forcing the fumble. I believe that was the Earl O'Klein return for a touchdown.
How small did that ball look in his hand?
Dude, he actually looks like he could be another Willie Jefferson for the Riders. He's 6'7", and bigger. The guy's a beast.
Yeah.
And then
that's scary.
Charleston Hughes had himself a return for a touchdown. So, I mean, the defense is really coming together. And Jason Shivers, at the beginning of the season, it looked like that Rider defense was having some trouble. But now it looks a lot of the same as we've seen from last year from this team.
Well, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles.
Cam Judge was a beast too on that sack. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was the only. He had 1 defensive tackle, and that was it.
Yeah.
Way to make your mark. The defense in this game. I know Pipkin hadn't played in a while, so I mean that might have a little bit to do with it. But I mean, Pipkin goes 4 of 7, and then they bring in Schultz, and he goes 5 of 8. I think the defense did quite all right with what they had, and then at one point I can't remember who it was, but another defensive lineman went down.
Yeah,
and it was just like how many it's starting to be like how many of these guys can go down before it's just going to be, Darius Bladdock playing both ways.
we got to respect the Montreal defense as well because it's the Sask defense that scored 2 touchdowns here. Bob Slowick came into the league, and it seemed like they were struggling to start things off. They were giving up pass yards left and right, but the secondary for the Owls has come together, and they've got a great-looking defense as well.
Well, Patrick Levels was all over the place. 6 tackles. Taylor Loeffler,
your boy,
best player, best DB in the league, Taylor Loeffler. 4 tackles. Chris Aki with 5. It was a real team effort. John Bowman had a sack. I don't know how he's still in the league. I don't mean that. I don't know how he's still playing. He's ageless.
At the level that he's at, he's a beast out there still.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like you said, they didn't allow any offensive touchdowns. This defense has really come together well in the last 2 years, and then they with the additions like Mwamba and Loeffler, and even guys like Tommy Campbell. I mean, he only had 3 tackles, but I mean, do you really want to throw in his direction?
He's so quietly good; nobody really talks about him.
Right, and then Deontay Evans back there too. I mean, this defense is going to be sneaky good, and I still think Montreal, because Jeremiah Masoli is done for the year.
Right.
And Dane Evans is winning football games, although be it with the help of a certain officiating crew. I still think Montreal can host the East Final.
They can.
And I think they got a real good shot at it.
I actually picked the Owls to win this game. It was the only game I got wrong. The only game you got wrong was the
We're not talking about it.
The Lions and Tiger Cats game. I wonder if it would have been different if Vernon Adams was in the lineup. I kind of thought that the team visiting Montreal, it's a tough place to play, man.
How do you do curfew checks on Crescent Street? Like, let's be honest.
You got to fly in the day of the game, 3 hours before the game.
You fly in 5 hours before you get right on the bus. Boom, you're at the stadium. You fly out right after.
You got to keep your team on their best behavior. Now, do we see a contract going out to John Liu?
Well, does that mean Shinetti's getting cut?
I think so.
My goodness, what a catch.
John Liu with the one-handed snag from a fan in the stands. Just absolutely loved it.
No, not bad at all. and of course, he loves his bow ties.
Oh,
so
can't go wrong with a bow tie.
Yeah, like bow ties to him are like Shinetti's chucks, right?
This episode of Two and Out is brought to you in part by the Alberta Blue Cross Wellness Summit, a day to explore fresh perspectives and practices around wellness at work. Here's what Linda Crawford of Alberta Blue Cross had to say about the summit.
You know, Alberta Blue Cross really wants to support people. We truly, truly are moving the needle in a way that we want to make an impact. And so, you know, coming to even a first ever event is always fun. You can always now be able to say, hey, I was at that event. And our intention is to really leverage and scale this on an annual basis. So why not come and be that first pioneer and leader that raises their hand and says, you know what, this sounds fantastic. I want to be part of this movement, the energy that's going to happen there. Sign me up.
It's happening October 10th at the Renaissance Edmonton Airport Hotel. Sign yourself up at the wellnesssummit.ca. The third game of the week. And it was the second half of that Friday night doubleheader. Another ugly one. The Edmonton Eskimos grind a win out over the Ottawa Red Blacks 16-12. I think the narrative here with Trevor Harris playing against his old team. I mean, he had
he's not a good leader though,
attempts. Right? Yeah, he's not a good teammate. He's not a good leader. I did like the whole Antoine Pruneau trying to get in his face. I like that.
Did you see the coin toss?
Yeah.
Harris didn't even look him in the eye.
Yeah.
I guess. But I mean, if something would have went down, I mean, Roman Reigns is right there to take care of business.
I mean, things were under control.
Yeah.
We had a WWE superstar there. It was all
like a week after being T-boned, like not a big deal.
Yeah, and then before, big lighting rigs pushed on him on SmackDown Live. Like, what's going on here? Who's attacking? Roman Reigns. He seems safe at the game, though. He did seem safe at the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just a top-notch security at Commonwealth Stadium.
John Crockett, I think, was the star for Ottawa here. 13 carries for 89 yards. Actually, Ottawa's offense...
Don't sleep on Dominique Rhymes.
Yeah. He had a nice long touchdown at 118 yards for the day. But it looked like Ottawa kind of had Edmonton figured out in the first half. Well, at least they were moving the ball. And they were making things happen. And then the second half was a completely different story. They didn't get a first down until over halfway through the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. The Eskimo defense really shut them down in the second half, but it looked like Ottawa was going to grind it out here, at least for the first half.
Well, it was 12-10 at half. Like, I mean...
Yeah.
For Ottawa, and I was like, "Oh man, this isn't looking good." It was not great football to watch. Let's be honest.
Those are the games that Ottawa are going to be playing this year.
Well, they don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
I mean, Brad Sinopoli, 2 of 2 for 35 yards. That's going to be a big night for Brad now.
Like, is he going to get to 750 yards this season?
I don't know if I want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
It sounds bad, but that might be the accurate line here, and it might be the under.
What's he at right now?
It's under 300, I'm pretty sure.
No. Oh, there he is. Brad Sinopoli, 311.
311, so he's right around there.
After this game. So in 8 games. Oh, man. No, he's not getting there.
He's not getting there.
No.
Wow.
That's depressing.
It really is. Playing with...
But hey, this is what all the Red Blacks fans wanted. They wanted Dominic Davis. Because, he's a way better quarterback than Trevor Harris, apparently. Obviously, I mean, he showed it on Friday night with a 23 of 35 with 2 picks and a touchdown. That's a way better line than Trevor Harris had. Oh, wait.
How about Rafael Araujo Lopez?
I was hoping you were going to say his name because I didn't even want to
I think I probably butchered it, but he might be my flex going forward.
Well, you're forgetting about Janarian Grant.
Oh yeah, I mean, screw it. I'm just going.
And you're just gonna abandon Kenny the King Lawler like that, eh?
Just screw it. I'm going all 2,500 next week.
And you probably still do better than me.
I can't do it at quarterback, but
but yeah, 6 of 8 for 57 yards. He ends up with 11.7 fantasy points, which is second for receivers. For the Red Blacks, anyways.
Right.
So a really good debut for him. I'm not going to try to say it. It's nice to see those guys getting into the lineup and getting a shot.
You know what? Overall, for receivers, as far as fantasy goes, this was a rough week. Unless you had Brandon Banks or Brian Burnham, your receivers weren't really lighting up the scoreboard.
No, not overly. Like you said, Banks 36.7, Brian Burnham 33.9. It's a long way down to Dominique Rhymes at 21.8.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could count Janarian Grant, but he didn't take any snaps, as far as I know, and it was just all returns.
Yeah.
It was. You had to have the cream of the crop for receivers. Well, not necessarily. Like you could have strung some together, cheaper options, and got better value than an Eric Rogers.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, those guys were not putting the numbers up that we're used to seeing in the CFL.
I liked my Luke Tasker 1 catch for 3 yards on a 2-point convert.
Oh, that really helped my team out. You have no idea. Between Fajardo and Powell, not playing basically, then, keeping Malik Irons in my lineup because I forgot he was injured. So that worked out well.
Yeah, you had a rough week. I had
a real rough week. And then I had Devontae Dedmon, Kenny the King, because, I hadn't talked to you in like 3 days, so I missed you. So I had to put him in my lineup.
Man, I had Jeremiah Johnson and William Powell, and the game gets called. And I'm like, oh. Thanks.
Like, you think my fantasy lineup was bad and it upset me? Wait until we get to the next game.
Okay, we'll get through this game. It was just a grinder. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of stopped watching after the third quarter. It was all CJ Gable. 18 carries for 116 yards.
Finally.
Yeah, exactly. He's had a rough go after a hot start to the season. 4 catches for 31 yards. So 31 fantasy points were added there. Do you think he might be feeling the pressure of one Shaq Cooper on his heels?
If he's not, he's foolish.
I think that's what we're seeing.
Cooper. Cooper played in this game, one of 1 for 17 yards. 1 for 1 receptions. If CJ Gable gets comfortable, he's going to lose. Like, there's no way that Shaq Cooper doesn't get another look.
Right.
He can't be complacent in this game, right? And I think CJ Gable knows that. And Cooper got his chance because Gable was out of the lineup.
Yep.
And, Gable saw what Cooper could do, and we saw it last year too. CJ Gable knows what's up, knows he has to produce. But at the same time, they have to give him the ball. They can't handcuff him with 8 carries. So to give him 18 and him to produce like he did, he averaged 6.4 and the 2 touchdowns, and added 4 catches for 34 through the air. It's a really good night for CJ. It was nice to see him get back on the horse.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, and I think a lot of running backs are like that. They just get better the more you give them the ball, and that's what we saw with CJ, who was just awesome to wrap up this game for them. The last game of the week, it took over 3 hours to play. There was just... Yeah. It was 35-34 Hamilton here, but the BC Lions squandered away another lead here. I mean, you can't say it any other way, man, because the Tiger Cats were taking penalty after penalty after penalty in the third quarter. The Lions had it over for over 11 minutes in the third quarter alone.
It was over 12 minutes.
And then they had a shot to recover a kickoff and let it go through their hands. If they recover that kickoff, we're not talking about a missed block on a big punt return at the end of the game. That's not even a conversation. The Lions had so many opportunities to put the Ticats away, and they just didn't do it.
So the Lions were plus 375.
So you jumped on that. You pounced on it like a lion.
Oh, no, you're going to cut. Oh, damn it,
Tyrell. How do I spell that for the title?
RAWWR.
I think you're more like a MEOW.
Do you want to record this, or should I just hang up the phone? So, yeah, I jumped on that thinking, BC...
Coming off the bye,
lots of time. Dana, it'll be fine. Turns out I was right for 59 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, as much as I love watching Major League Baseball and the ump show that is, don't even get me started on the Brett Gardner ejection the other day, I get to watch Al Bradbury and his crew give the Lions a lead in the third quarter when his crew can't keep flags in their pockets.
Oh, that was 100% an official's drive, or at least penalty aided anyway, yeah.
And then when the game is on the line, and officials always say we don't want to affect the outcome of a game. You are directly affecting the outcome of the game when you don't call penalties that should be called. And you will never get that through their head. And it's embarrassing. And 9 times out of 10, whose crew is it that screws up a game? Like, I defend officials. I've done it lots. I'm done. Unless it's Andre Pruill. Because he's the man. But, well, I mean, that's off the record. But on the Frank Williams return, a hold and a block in the back on the same guy right in front of an official, not called.
We've seen softer plays called in the Grey Cup.
Oh,
the Ticats know all about that.
Don't get me started on that, because I had the Ticats on that one. Okay, whatever. On the touchdown pass to Brandon Banks, Odell Willis gets such a good jump on the left tackle.
Yeah.
One of the best jumps I've ever seen. Basically, it's clotheslined across the neck because he's behind the left tackle, right in front of who? Al Bradbury. Did he throw his flag? Of course he didn't, because why would he? Because he doesn't want to affect the outcome of a game. Brandon Banks scores a touchdown, screws me out of $130. But we can actually talk about the game. I just need to get that off my chest.
I mean, that about does it for the game. The Lions had another one here, just like the head Calgary.
And Mike Riley is getting killed in the final 5 minutes of that game.
Oh, man, there was a shot of him. I think Simone had his leg, and he ended up getting hit. Yeah. And he had a snap go over his head, and Ja'Gared Davis landed on top of him. He looked about...
Well, and that's when he rolled his ankle, and then that was the ankle that Simone grabbed in the next series for the sack to hold him up. Like, he was getting beat up.
Did he not look like a good old 55-year-old Reggie Dunlop?
Man.
He is just limping around.
I'm not going any further than that.
He's just limping around on the sidelines, just trying to get out there. And the Lions' offensive line had their best game of the year.
Yeah, they only gave up 3 sacks.
Which, I know.
Okay, but so I bitch about the reffing and all this stuff. How many sacks did Hamilton give up?
None.
How many times did they turn the ball over?
None.
Yeah, so they probably should have won this game.
And that's why they won. I don't know if the turnovers really cost BC, but you know what? Hamilton had the special teams returns, and BC didn't. So there's another difference. But yeah, when it comes to the sacks, the Lions have 0 pass rush. Mm-hmm. If they had a pass,
and the one time they get it,
yeah. There's no holding call, which they're probably
like you agree with me on that one too. He had him across the neck, right?
He did
on his far shoulder.
We saw a similar play in another game that was called, I think, on Jacob Ruby when the DeVaris Daniels
friend of the show, Jacob Ruby.
Yes, that one got called, and then. Yep. The Odell Willis one does not get called.
And it's not like he just stopped. He kept his legs turned, like he kept turning his legs, trying to draw a call. Like when you're getting hooked and slashed in hockey, you got to keep skating or you're not going to get that call, right? He does everything right, tries to push through it, nothing. And Brandon Banks, of course, wide open.
Yeah, he's always wide open, it seems like.
Bright spot, though, Brian Burnham, 7 of 8, 149, his first 2 touchdowns of the year.
And John White.
John White, okay, 15 for 124 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, adds a catch for 6 yards, 33.9 fantasy points.
Monster. It's like he's all or nothing when you have him on your team.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike Riley, 21 of 28, 306, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns. Second overall this week with 23.9 for quarterbacks. Like, it doesn't look that sexy with the picks.
Yeah.
But I mean, a guy like Dane Evans only had 20 points. Didn't turn the ball over. But I mean, both guys' percentages in the 70s. Like, I mean, it was a really well played game. And I know, like, when a team scores 35 and 34 points, you just think that it's probably not the best game I've ever watched, but like especially defensively. But I mean, guys are making plays, and it was fun to watch. And I threw stuff at the TV. I'm not going to lie. And at the end of it, once I cooled down, I'm like, oh, that's actually a pretty decent football game. Now I can try to get some sleep. But Brandon Banks, 9 of 11, 137 with 2 touchdowns. Like, I mean, guys put up numbers in this game, which is always fun if you were able to fit them in your fantasy lineup. I wasn't able to get either one of them. But they're still really fun to watch. And Marshall Ferguson called it. He said Brian Burnham would get a touchdown on the radio before the game started, and he paid off pretty early for him.
Dane Evans has a laser of an arm.
Can't catch, though.
Would that have counted towards Tasker's total? Because I watched it today, and I'm like, oh, he almost had a passing touchdown. And then... Yep. He almost had the receiving touchdown on the next play. I was like, oh.
Hey, Tasker, thanks for the 1 point, or thanks for the 3.3 points. It really helped my losing effort this week.
Canadian Football Podcast Network Fantasy Challenge. So you lost. Who were you up against?
Horseman.
Oh, was it Sheldon or Ryan?
Sheldon.
Oh, yeah. And
I didn't. I don't want to. I lost by like 40.
Oh.
Well, I mean, Malik Irons got me 0, and Luke Tasker got me 3.3. Fajardo and Powell play 3/4 of a game.
I think we could put an asterisk there.
Yeah. Like in the MLB record book, 756 with an asterisk. Or like every Golden State fan says that the Raptors should have beside their championship.
I ended up beating Safamod from the Piffles podcast by 9.9 points, I believe.
That's pretty great.
It was a rough week for actually most people playing fantasy, unless you had a White, Burnham, Banks, and an Andrew Harris or Janarian Grant, which you probably didn't, you liar. So it was just one of those weeks. Hopefully the offenses fly next week.
It would be nice, but we both know that it's going to be guys like Ryder Stone that's going to have a big night,
who's going to have the
Mike Jones, and not going to be on anybody's lineups, right?
Yeah, it's been.
There's always that one guy.
Absolutely, like this week it was Janarian Grant. Last week it was Devontae Dedmon just putting on a show. I like all these players putting on shows. We might have to start putting a dedicated returner spot in our lineup.
That was what I did with Marcus Thigpen 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I'm taking, and I had to start him at running back because I didn't want to move my flex guy because he was a wide receiver, and I put Thigpen in, and he had the return. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I would have looked real dumb. Yeah. And he outscored Powell by like 1 point, so I won.
Oh man, fantasy has just been an adventure this season. I can't believe.
You could call it that. I'd call it more of
torture?
A bleep show.
I can't believe I haven't quit yet, but
I'm so close.
Still doing it. We're a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Check out all the other great shows at albertapodcastnetwork.com. I'm going to point you to Bollywood is for Lovers. Matt and Aaron explore the world of Hindi cinema through the lens of two Canadian cinephiles. I actually watched the Fast and the Furious Hobbs and Shaw movie last week.
Is it good?
You know what, man? If you just want to go in and just pound some popcorn and watch a good action movie, that's
I don't want any storylines. I just want fire.
Okay,
and explosions.
That's your movie, man.
and of course, gratuitous shots of The Rock's biceps.
Okay, that's your movie.
Awesome.
And Roman Reigns is in it, by the way. So
hey, it's his yard now.
And remember, if you need tickets for any event, it doesn't matter what it is. CFL games, comedy shows, concerts, NHL games. It's all at seatgiant.ca, who has partnered with the Alberta Podcast Network. So at checkout, use your promo code APN. You're going to save 5% and support the Alberta Podcast Network in the process. Who doesn't like to save money? Who doesn't like to see your tickets in Canadian dollars as well? SeatGiant.ca. Use the promo code APN. Make sure you subscribe, you rate, you review, tune out on any of your favorite podcatchers, and we will talk to you Thursday morning.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.